Dennis Dash, welcome to RIVEM Outpace. It's a pleasure to have you on the show. We met through your father, who I met
Mhm.
through a very good friend from the IDB. And you are your own man. Your last name precedes you, but from that conversation I had with you, you have done several things, and you can introduce yourself now to the viewers on Facebook.
Appreciate it, brother. Yeah, no, I'm happy we got to get on and have a quick conversation. So, quick overview about me. I'm from the States. I'm from the U.S. I was born and raised out in New Jersey. We ended up coming to Guyana a couple of years ago, just on some infrastructure development focus, and that's really where our main focus there is now. And as far as my background, I've been very involved in the cannabis space. Ran a lot of dispensaries. We were fully vertically integrated, so we had dispensaries, grows, everything, labs, kitchens, the whole nine put together. I did that for about 4 years, and then prior to that, I was in the hospitality industry. So I ran concierge companies that were located out in Arizona.
Yeah, and the Dash name is very big in music. But before this recording started, we were speaking about hemp and the hemp space in
Mm,
Guyana and how that developed. And we're going to touch on that. But what I really wanted to speak to you on is that when we sat down, we had a conversation on cryptocurrency, and
yes,
we had a conversation on Ripple. And this
yes,
was, while I wasn't tracking it in an active way, I know that Trump had a major rally on
mm,
cryptocurrency. I think it was in Nashville, and that was mid uh, of the year, and there was
mm,
upward momentum from that. And following on from that, with the elections in the U.S. and the change in, for example, the SEC leadership that is going to be
yeah,
very favorable to digital assets. So, but it still was at a time where I would say that the spike didn't really occur. And having a conversation with you and then seeing
yeah,
it move, there was
mm.
a great intuition that that was embedded in that conversation. So, speak to me a little bit of Ripple, how you ended up investing in cryptocurrency, and
Mm.
how has that been going for you?
It's actually been going great. So a little bit about Ripple and how I got involved there. I was focused in crypto heavy when I had just gotten out of beginning of college and high school. Crypto was booming. All my friends were doing it. And so I started to catch a little bit of a wave. So from there, I was like, all right, what's happening that, the public isn't necessarily focused on yet, but has a really good utility and something that could actually be implemented and grow without just being, the coin that you see, the Doge or the Sheba, and it's as catchy as those are, and the traction they got from just the publicity. I'm like, what is the utility behind it? What can it actually do? And so as I went down that rabbit hole, I stumbled upon Ripple actually by accident. I was on Twitter, and I was going through, just people I was following, and I saw a lot of people just talking about Ripple Labs, Ripple Labs, Ripple Labs, XRP. So I was like, all right, naturally, let me do a little research. I looked into it, looked into the CEO, and I realized that they just weren't a coin, that their utility allowed for banks to really process transactions at a tenth of the time that it would take. It's probably more than a tenth. And so, it goes from 3 to 5 business days to 3 to 5 minutes. And realistically, you're looking at a couple seconds of a transaction when it is close and you're not in a different country or wherever it is. But when you cut something down from 3 to 5 business days to 3 to 5 minutes, and the company allows you to actually clear out your money, have access to it immediately, I was like, it for me, it was a no brainer that at some point, no matter the time it would take, it wasn't a if, it was a when. I went down that rabbit hole for a while. And then once I discovered that it was cutting these payment times so short, I was like, whatever money I did have at that point, I was like, oh, let me buy some of the token to see what it does. And at this time, it was getting a little bit of traction. People weren't really paying attention to it more so on the public scale and like the general public scale. But you also had a lot of institutional investors who were like poor.
If you
So
don't
that
mind me
got,
asking,
yeah,
which year was that? So from the point in which you placed your initial investment in Ripple, that would have been which year?
this was probably end of 2015, beginning of 2016.
Okay, that's a while
Yeah,
ago. Because even when
yeah.
I heard of it, that was 2018, 2019, when I was in England with my friends
Hmm.
speculating in that space. So you were really early on in the belief of the vision. And as you were saying with institutional, you could pick it up back because that's a very good point of the institutional weight with Ripple Labs.
Yeah, 100%. And so once I saw a couple of the institutional people talking about it, nobody was really putting any money to it. There was no ETFs formed for of Bitcoin or anything like that. So everybody was very skeptical. And the institutional money was holding back, but I saw institutional investors who had a point and a viewpoint and an opinion that people actually followed and it mattered, and they tend to be right. So I was like, okay, cool, let's focus here. If they're all confident in it, and then as I went through that process of, vetting the research I was doing and doing a little bit more due diligence on the side of who the CEO was, who the team was there, what they were all about, their vision for it, it was very transparent to me that it wasn't a quick flip. It wasn't a quick turnaround. Let's turn and burn. Let's pump and dump, as I call it, on the stocks or with the crypto. You see a lot of here today, gone tomorrow type of coins. And so everybody was really long-term on it. And so at that point, I was like, all right, we're going to go here. I went to everybody who I knew that would be able to say, hey, here's a little bit of capital. We trust your opinion. Let's see what you could do with it. Put it in. So I got it at a really solid price, and we saw a big spike. I think around that time, it was within the next 2 years, we saw it's like all-time high. And it got to around $3.84. And once we passed, I want to say the $3 mark, I had partners, I had friends of partners, partners, friends coming out of the woodwork like, hey, we need to be able to buy, because in the US, it wasn't on a Coinbase. It wasn't on these huge platforms that are worldwide. It was on these little, you have to go to a MetaMask, and then from MetaMask go into another wallet and swap the coin. And so it was a whole bunch of that. And so I was more so that guy. I had my account set up already because I was there 2015, 2016. Everything was stable. And the one place where you could buy it, I want to say it was Bittrex at the time. I'm pretty sure the site is closed down and they went through a whole fraud type thing, but they had the coin on their platform. So I was able to go in and buy up a good amount and, take it out and put it into a hard wallet, which is called Exodus. So now I knew it wasn't on anybody's platform. I wasn't at risk of getting it taken by anybody, or, if what happened to Bittrex and they just go bust, where's my money? So I put it there and I honestly let it sit.
Yeah, so a few things coming off of that, because I think that's a major hindrance for anyone interested in retail investing in Guyana, because this is not a very developed space. We had this conversation as well as to when it's likely to develop. We're very early on, speaking to a very niche audience, but the process of buying the cryptocurrency is one that we could touch on in a bit. But I'm curious, so you've had this gain. Are you intended on, are you still going to hold, or are you going to donate some of it? You're still going to hold. What's your timeline? What's your investment out?
So realistically, my man, I'm one of those delusional investors that I see the really big play, whether or not it's 5 years, 15 years. I'm in for the long haul. Any type of little cash I do have that comes in, $1,000 here, a couple $1,000 there, I just put there and forget it. Just because I'm like, this is money. I know that if it wasn't in a savings account, I'd grow my little bit of interest here. And, these $1,000 chunks, they mean a lot. It's money that can make a difference in everyday to day life. But for me, I'm like, all right, we're going to set it and forget it. And I act like as if I'm going to the casino. Whatever I put in, I'm comfortable and willing to take a chance on.
Set it and forget it. And then the other part, very important, because it's a very volatile investment. The prices are likely to fluctuate a lot, so you are willing to risk it, and that's very important. Anyone interested in investing in the space, they must know based on what they have at their disposal, there's only a fraction that they're going to put into this, and they must realize the risk inherent in it. But for someone who is a beginner, how walk them through what it takes or what it entails to buy cryptocurrency. We wouldn't be able to say which platform works, which platform does not work, because I know like crypto.com, for example, and these things actually will not work in the jurisdiction. But just from your experience, what is that process?
So for me, the process, I'm a really big believer in doing an extensive due diligence process, extensive research, like you would do with everything. Me, if I'm going to dedicate my time and especially my money, because they both mean a lot to me, I'm going to make sure I know as much about whatever I'm investing in as possible. So that's sitting, and before I put $1 into any platform or $1 into any coin, I'm sitting and getting an understanding of what does the company do? What do they do for the general public? What's their vision over the course of 5, 10, 15 years? And are they here for the long haul? Because you'll get a lot of stuff. It's people create it to sell it. And it's like, yes, it's a beautiful thing. It's a great entrepreneurial mindset to create it, sell something, and move on, to not become too attached necessarily. But when my money's getting involved, I want to know that you're involved personally and that it matters to you and that the project, means something. And so that's a big thing for me is a real due diligence factor and just really learning the people who run the company. Because at the end of the day, the money flows where the people are generating it correctly. The energies are pure, the intentions are pure. They have a pure vision for whatever their grand scheme is. And so those are really like my main three pillars where I'm like, all right, if there's something going on and I'm going to invest my time and or money, what do I know about them? What can I know about them? And how do I know more?
Yes. And what about the actual, you mentioned your wallet, for example. So these might be very foreign to somebody who would have not invested before or had no experience. So how do you actually onboard that cryptocurrency then? How do you actually, I think you would have used sites, as you said, that may not have been around, may not be around now, but just speak about the actual process of acquiring it and holding it.
Yeah, 100%. So there's platforms such as, for an example, called like Coinbase. And if you don't want to necessarily use one platform, you can go on this website called CoinMarketCap. CoinMarketCap gives you every single platform that the crypto that you're invested in would be listed on. So you have an option to buy on any of these platforms. And again, that comes down to research where you feel the most comfortable, look into the security of the platform and say, okay, cool, I'm going to go buy here. I trust sending my money to the platform and I trust the platform to send it back to me. And that comes with, just time, and people build up their reputation. Coinbase has built up a great reputation to where it's a trusted interaction partner. And you can go and you could trust you're going to get your coin delivered to your wallet within the allotted amount of time. And then from there, you have the option to either put it into cold storage, or I think it's cold storage or hot storage wallets. And from my understanding, I always get this confused on which the inverse is, but one of them essentially just takes it off of the platform. So you bought the coin on Coinbase, it sits on Coinbase in your Coinbase wallet, but like any platform, it has the ability and the risk of getting hacked. So if they were to hack it, they can go and clean out the whole platform, and it wouldn't be a necessarily targeted attack on your account, but the platform itself. And a lot of the times they're not held liable for how your coins work, where they're stored. And so having a cold storage wallet, it allows you to send the money to a wallet that isn't necessarily on any platform, doesn't have access to from any specific website. And it's more so it's on your phone, and they give you a password key of 12 generated new different words and passwords, and it's constantly updating. And so it's there, it's secure, and it's not necessarily going to be hacked. But again, you run the risk like with everything. If you give out your information, if somebody's able to get the correct things from you or the correct things from the website, you always run the risk of it getting hacked. That's what it comes down to, the due diligence process of understanding where is the safest place to keep the crypto. But you always could buy it on a platform and keep it on a platform if you want to keep it there, and it's going to be day-to-day transactions. But if you're buying something like I did with Ripple and XRP, and I said 5 years, I'll check on it, whatever the case is, put it in a cold storage wallet, it's sitting there, it's secure, it's a lot less likely to be hacked by somebody in outside.
Yeah, I think that's a very key word. Your due diligence, do your research. I think too many people get into, when they're speculating, they get into a allocation of capital into a very speculative product, and they don't do their research. And sadly, with retail trading especially, majority of individuals lose their capital. Mm-hmm. So when I started RIVEM, particularly I just wanted to bring credible information to the space of retail trading, retail investing. So thank you for that segment. And I just want to segue a bit, because the background that you have with cannabis is very exciting. It's interesting. It's intriguing, because I know for Guyana, the president has said that they are going to take very active steps in developing, and they would have passed the industrial hemp bill in 2022 for hemp cultivation on a large scale. But in respect of, you could speak from your experience in the US, how you got into the cannabis business and how that was before we end.
Absolutely. So I got involved in the cannabis space, I want to say early 2021, late 2020. It was around that time that we have our few investment partners that were actively buying up dispensaries, and we have, a family office that was involved in advising the work. And so once all of that kind of came to fruition and all these points intersected, I said, how can I get more involved? I want to have a conversation, a really good conversation with one of our partners. And as we sat down, he explained to me, hey, these are the verticals that we're in. This is our vision to build out over the next couple of years. Where do you see yourself fitting it? Me, I've been very blessed with having a very good sales persona and having the ability to really manage and maintain interpersonal relationships. So I went out there and I did what I do. I went and hit the ground. I went to every dispensary and I went to every lab and every grow, and I drove, and it took me months, but I went and sat down with everybody. I went to make an introduction. I went to have a coffee or a drink, and just to make sure that they understood who I was, I understood who they were, and what could we do. And then from there, we went and built brands in sections of the cannabis space that I saw that were lacking, whether or not it was a creative brand, a minority-owned brand, something that was a little more upscale. There was niche moments where it was, okay, what could be inserted here? And so from there, I ended up doing a really big sales position, and then I grew into an operations role. And so I was the chief operations officer, and I was running the day-to-day for our full verticals. So whether or not it was the retail, the wholesale, the grow, the labs, the kitchens, anything that had to do with a product getting produced, I oversaw and I managed to run. And then it allowed me to really build my network out, build my brands, work with a lot of these big conglomerate companies that are stationed all across the US, and not only the US, but worldwide. And that it was really the network building that allowed me to dive so deep into this industry. And so to this day, I do a lot of advisory work and a lot of consulting work into the cannabis space with people who are just launching brands, and they're coming to markets such as, New Jersey and all these different states where there's nuanced rules. And that was really my introduction there. I was very fortunate to be introduced to a really good person who saw me and saw my abilities and the capabilities I did have, and in the space that I was interested in. But at the end of the day, it's when you have something so natural that can actually produce and grow an economy, it's interesting to me. And it's been so frowned upon for so long that now that we do have a lot of acceptance into the industry, people are being able to understand how much money it is able to generate. And with that generation, you're seeing governments want to get involved because they realize it's not necessarily such a stigmatized thing as we're going into our generations. From our parents and our grandparents, it was a different story. It was for me in the US, it was a scheduled substance, and we had this thing called the DARE program, where it was essentially dare against drugs, to not, use any drugs, and cannabis was on the top of that list. And so over time, as we grew, people got to see all right, maybe it's not such a horrible thing, but there's also purposes where it could be used as for a medical stance, help people with PTSD, chronic nausea, and the list goes on. And I think once it got to that viewpoint, it was a more accepted thing. And then as the generations have grown, I feel like it's a very regular thing to hear about people wanting to get involved in the cannabis space, and it's so lucrative, the industry itself.
Right, because there's marijuana, there's the hemp, then there's the CBD, but then the THC content is different. So, for example, with hemp, it's so low that you can't get high. So you could give a brief comment on that, and then you could also, you did in a way just now, but you could also give any insights in how you think that business is going to develop in Guyana and export oriented. You can leave an insight on that, and then we could wrap.
100%. And yeah, so with the cannabis plant itself, it's a very interesting one because there is so many different variations of the flower that comes off the plant, or how it's derived into a tincture or wax or whatever the next stage of the THC itself is. But a lot of people lose sight of, they think, all right, cool, it's a weed plant, psychoactive effects, you get high, it numbs your brain, it fogs you out. But there's different stages of the plant. So if you pull it out early, or you grow it a little bit too late, more light, less light, certain type of nutrients in the soil, it does different things. And so there, for instance, like the CBD aspect you spoke about, there is no psychoactive effect. So there is no effect to where you feel it in your head, or you feel it behind your eyes, or foggy and groggy, or whatever the side effects would come with actually smoking cannabis day to day. You start to see the effects of, okay, cool, it's getting rid of my joint pain. It's managed to get rid of my nausea. It helps me sleep. And whatever the nuanced effect and the nuanced help is for the individual consuming it, you see the positive effects now. It's starting to be a little more showed and focused on. And then as far as the expansion of cannabis in a place like Guyana, I think the hemp industry is so popular and it's ripe to happen there just because hemp has the ability to be turned into so many different things. It could actually be produced. It could make clothes. There's so many different aspects hemp could be derived and
I
used
think
for.
the first thing that I used with hemp would have been hemp protein. I think hemp protein is the first thing, as you were saying.
Yeah, it's again, there's so many different avenues now, and with this realization, I think countries and places like Guyana and across CARICOM, they're realizing this could be a very useful and a very lucrative thing again to be involved in. It's the stigma is not there. It's not you're seen as a pothead, as it was called. There's somebody that smokes weed every day, so you're guaranteed lazy or whatever the stigma that came with it was. I think there's more so an understanding of it can be derived into a whole bunch of different things that could help a lot of different people, medical or not. There's it could be turned into a protein powder, and it's positive health effects on it. And so once you get all these understandings and these studies have been done, because there's been enough time now to have these studies, it's the sky's the limit. So if sky's the limit, why not necessarily get involved for a place that it would grow beautifully and it wouldn't be a lot of extra work needed to have a very successful and a very great plant.
Yeah, Dennis Dash, I appreciate you for taking the time out to be on this segment of RIVEM Outpace FS. And until we meet again, see you soon.
Absolutely, bro. Thank you for taking the time. I hope you have a great one.